Hello and welcome to the Northern Souls podcast. I'm your host Zeke and I am joined by my lovely wife Keegan.
Hello.
All right, so the purpose of this podcast will be to discuss, explore, and educate others on Norse paganism. Ultimately, our goal is to find the good life. So before we really get started, there's a correction that I wanted to make. Previously, we had said that we had celebrated Dieselbloat, and we did it at the end of October. So I have found out that actually that is not when Dieselbloat was supposed to be celebrated. That was Winter Nights. And the reason why I was like, oh yeah, Dieselbloat's on this date was because I took another person at their word who appeared to be authoritative and was kind of citing historical sources, but now that I've done some more research, I've found out that this guy kind of jumped to conclusions, and therefore I jumped to conclusions. Putting Dieselbloat in, the Octoberish area that only comes from one little tiny snippet of one Icelandic saga. Whereas there's other sources stating that it was mainly celebrated in Sweden, and it was either done kind of like at the end of January or the end of the Yule month, or roundabouts the spring equinox. So, just wanted to take a slice of humble pie for myself and just remind everybody, really do your research. Don't take people at their words, but also understand some people are human. Like the person that I had listened to, like I said, this isn't something he just pulled out of thin air. I think he just kind of jumped to conclusions, and you got to be aware people are human. People make mistakes too. So always check your sources. And if anybody doesn't cite their sources, you should probably be a little more skeptical than I was. I've watched some other stuff from this person, and I noticed that was a trend with him, and I had already come to the conclusion, oh, take this guy with a grain of salt, but I had figured, surely the dates of these holidays is one you wouldn't mess up, especially if you're citing from the sagas, and I found out that was wrong. So I just wanted to put that quick correction out there real quick. So anyways, what we really wanted to talk about, in my last video, I had announced that we're making a big out-of-state move. So we're finally kind of settled in.
Yeah, we've been here for about 2 weeks now.
Yeah, and it's been fun. It's actually pretty nice. We're homeowners now.
Yeah.
We're full adults. Yeah.
No longer renting.
Talking to all you millennials. Y'all know what we're talking about.
Yeah.
Anyways, but one thing that I really wanted to talk about was basically why we decided to move out of state. Because people move all the time, obviously, but normally they stay in one area. It's very unusual for people to make a big out-of-state move, to move that far.
Yeah, I would say exceptions are military, or if you got a big job somewhere, or you got family existing already there.
Exactly, yeah. Which none of that applied to us.
Nope, something totally new.
Yeah, we both have remote jobs, so we were kind of like, you know what, we can go wherever we want to.
Within the United States.
Within the United States, yes. But I think for me, mostly what really started me on this kick of moving away from the original state that I lived in was I had lost a lot of ties with certain people that I had personally thought were reliable, and came to find out that wasn't necessarily true. And the more and more I went on with my life, the more and more I was finding a hard time to find reasons to stay in the state that I was living in, because there's a number of reasons why I didn't really like it. But that's true for a lot of people. But normally it's this place could be a little bit better, but I got my family here, I got my job here, whatever. And I was having a hard time finding reasons to stay.
Right.
And yeah, just kind of got us thinking, well, where can we move? So we really started digging into that, looking for areas that were more in alignment with our wants and our desires. But what I really wanted to talk about is to go deeper into why we decided to move so far away from family and really a lot of things that we know. Because like in the area we live in, we don't have family here.
No.
It's totally new. Don't get us wrong. So far, we're really liking the area. It's really nice. But we're also going to have to force ourselves to start making friends and find new peer groups and stuff.
Yeah. Well, it's like, for me, it's kind of the same things. It's just, I was really strongly bonded to my family. I basically grew up and lived in the same area almost all my life. And my mom's family in particular was always within 20 miles basically of where we lived for the last 5 years. And then I came to the realization the last year or so, because 2020 was terrible. We've already gone over that in a previous episode. But it made me realize that these people that I just grew to not only depend on, but basically rely on for my own life, it kind of like stunted my actual growth as an adult. Because being surrounded by my parents and my family for almost all my life made me realize I never really grew up, if that makes sense. And we needed a catalyst for change for many reasons. In the last year, I found out a lot of these family members I grew to depend and rely on were actually pretty toxic outside of my family bubble. And then even then, inside my family bubble. And it was just like, no, we needed a change. Yeah. And we ended up finding the place that we are in now simply because it, like you were saying, it lined up with where we actually wanted to go. The price point was right. Everything fell into line. And our room castings were good.
Yeah, it was something like, that's what I will say. It wasn't like something I just did on the fly and then just went ahead and did it. Like, I was very deliberate. And the places I chose, like, I looked into everything you can think about the area, what's the crime, what's the climate, what's this, what's that. I also did a number of rune castings. Like, I had picked a bunch of different states and was like, what if we start looking for houses here? What if we start looking for houses here? And then once we picked a state, then we started looking, narrowing the search, okay, well, what city, what town, and, but mostly for me, kind of like what you said, Keagan, is the people I lived around that I relied on for a long time. And I kind of alluded to this in my previous video. Well, more specifically, one person more than others turned out to not exactly have my best interests at heart. And yeah, also stunted my spiritual growth and kind of created an unhealthy codependency. And I just found that, if we had stayed in that area, that would have never changed. Like, it would have been that much harder to grow because they're right there.
To be your own person. Yeah.
And yeah, so it's like we need a clean slate. We need a clean slate. We need to start over somewhere else where we can reinvent ourselves if we have to, just discover ourselves, who we are, develop ourselves spiritually, physically, mentally. And, I was just finding it's like, that's just not going to happen if we stay in this place. And to me, it kind of felt like we were being pushed out, not in the bad way, but
no, it had to happen.
Kind of like how maybe a mama bird might start nudging her babies out of the nest when it's like time for them to go, or they'll take out one piece of the nest bit by bit until there's nothing left and they have to go. Yeah. That's kind of how it felt like to me.
Right. It's this entire process of this move, as soon as we got the thought to move out of state, everything kind of lined up, like just fell into line. Every hurdle that we thought would be an obstacle somehow miraculously would work out. And I am not joking you. Like, there are times that we're like, we're not going to get this house. It's not going to happen.
Yeah. And we're like, oh my God, we're going to have to rent again. Or crap, we're going to have to pick another state. Yeah.
And then it would work out the next morning. Like, it was kind of baffling a little bit how the pieces lined up.
Yeah. And to my mind, that just told me it's like we're doing exactly what we're supposed to.
Yeah. If things are easy, then we've come to the conclusion of, like, that's how it's supposed to be then.
Yeah, like, I haven't really talked about weird a lot, but just to keep it simple, especially for beginners, it's a concept that is incredibly similar to fate. And I have personally found that when you are in alignment with your weird, when you're not fighting it, when you're not fighting your quote-unquote fate, at least in my case, I can't really speak for other people, but at least for me personally, things just strangely work out. It's only when you fight it, when you try to do different things, when things go awry and things just don't work out for you. I don't know. I understand that might sound a little cavalier for some people because, bad things happen to people all the time. But when I'm doing what I'm supposed to do, anything that's, quote, bad that happens to me is really just an inconvenience. It's not like bad. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Then after we got into our new house, we made an offering to the gods and the land spirits here.
Yeah.
We just went outside, found a tree in our backyard, and set our offering. And then I dried some flowers that Zeke gave me for our anniversary. It's like my favorite, actually, bouquet of flowers I ever gotten. And I dried those out, and I spread those around the tree as well.
Yeah.
Yeah, as an offering. Because they meant something to me in our life.
Yeah. Yeah, so I think, honestly, our next step is just to get, like, a better feel for the area. Like, one thing we want to do this weekend is look for nice lands around the area, like maybe a nature preserve or something, so we can find a place where we can start leaving offerings outdoors and not just, on our property.
In city limits.
Yeah, because, again, it does seem like for all of the bloats, at least for the religious parts where, they were doing a sacrifice, they left the offerings outside in nature. And that's something that I want to stick to, that I want to be true to as much as I can, for the most part. Obviously, things will come up in life where that may not be possible, but if it is possible, that's what we want to do. So, yeah. But that's my thing. It's just forcing myself to get outside of the bubble I was in is also kind of encouraging me to do my own research into things, really reevaluate some of my beliefs and how I perceive the gods, the elves, land spirits, our ancestors, things like that. And because what I noticed is when I stayed in my circle of known people, especially closer to the end, something was just off. It felt stagnant. It felt like everybody was doing the same old boring thing over and over again. And frankly, I was questioning whether or not it was actually in alignment with how our ancestors practiced and believed. And in fact, I was like getting to the point where I'm like 99% sure this is some made up new age stuff, which, not to bash on anyone who believes in that kind of stuff. If that works for you, great. Point is, it wasn't working for me. And that's Like really why I was like, I gotta leave. And the more and more I stayed there, the more and more I was finding people, not necessarily intentionally, were doing this, but were at least subconsciously trying to drag me down, trying to stifle me. Anytime I might mention something that I wanted to get into, a lot of times some people would be like, oh, well, if you try that, oh, this could happen, that could happen. Oh, man, it's going to be this and that. Whoa, you sure you want to do that? And it was getting to the point where it's like, hey, man, I'm not telling you what to do. Don't tell me what to do,
Right.
This is something that's important to me. I'm not telling you that you got to do it as well, you know? And I think that was just kind of their own personal insecurities, at least subconsciously realizing that maybe they weren't doing what they were supposed to do with their lives, not realizing their potential, not spiritually growing within themselves, and that they were stagnant, and that the idea that someone else was outgrowing them and just becoming their fullest selves was making them aware of their shortcomings. And they didn't like it, and they're like, "Hey, stop that! I gotta pull you back down." It kind of reminds me of and this isn't Norse paganism stuff. It's just good old philosophy stuff, but it kind of reminds me of Plato's allegory of the cave. If you want some good, fun, extra reading, highly recommend checking that out because it's just good stuff. Anyways, what do you think about that, Keegan?
I mean, yeah, it's the only thing that's capable of change is if you do it yourself. It's not just going to happen to you.
Yeah.
No matter what, you got to be the one in charge of your own life.
Yeah.
And if you put your fate in other people's hands, then it's not going to be fulfilling. Especially not to the gods, they want you to live the good life. How are you going to live the good life by someone telling you how to live it?
Yeah.
Or someone trying to live your life for you. It's not going to work. You got to take life with your own hands and make things with your own hands, build things with your own hands, and live lessons and learn them on your own.
Yep.
Or, with your husband or your wife or whoever it may be with your partner in life. But the whole thing is, it's as much as, like, say my parents want me to have a good life, right? They don't want me to make any mistakes because they already made all their mistakes, so they don't want their children to make the same ones. Here's the thing I keep on telling my dad and my mom: let me make those mistakes because I need to learn why it's a mistake to begin with. Mm-hmm. You don't live life without taking chances.
Yeah, and I think that's probably my biggest takeaway is what I was really realizing about a lot of people is just how averse to risk they were. And especially for me practicing this way, I was like, where's your sense of courage? Where's your sense of adventure? Our ancestors were bold and were explorers and took risk and faced just about any challenge that came their way with their shoulders back and their head held high with pride. And honestly, to a point, it was starting to make me disappointed in a lot of my peers. But one thing I was thinking about was because I was a little bit guilty of this. I was kind of waiting for something to happen for a while, kind of waiting for something to come my way. And this is a lesson that I've had to learn multiple times. For example, when I was stationed in the Air Force and I went to my first duty station, it was in England, and I was super excited. I was like really into all the medieval stuff. I loved the Legend of King Arthur and Camelot. And then, obviously I learned more about Vikings and stuff. And I was like, hey, this is actually a pretty good spot to check out like all of that stuff. Like there's so much history, especially just about anywhere in Europe. And I was so excited. But when I had first got there, I was kind of waiting for somebody else to take me out on a trip or something. And like for the Yeah, 5 months. First 5 months I had been there. I didn't do anything. I didn't go anywhere because nobody else was going anywhere. Like the best they would do is go off base to some club, some nightclub, some bar to get drunk and maybe pick up some chicks, you know. And I was like, that's cool and all, but like I want to do things here that I can't do back in the States. And this place has so much history and I want to see it all. I want to check it out. And I finally came to the conclusion where it's like, dude, if you want to start saying things, you have to make that happen.
Right.
You know? And
then other people followed you.
no, exactly. Like on this one day off, like I said, screw it. I'm going to take the train to London and I'm going to check out London because where we were, it was like an hour train ride to London. And if you guys ever go to London, you'll find you cannot see everything there is to see in London in one day. It's not possible. So I said, screw it. And I had to go to the main gate because taxi cab drivers couldn't come onto base. And I was just going to take a taxi, the train station, and just go. And I passed some of my co-workers who happened to be just getting off their shift. They were night shift. I was day shift. And they were like, oh, hey, man, where are you going? And I was like, oh, yeah, I'm going to London. And they're like, well, we want to come too. Is it okay if you wait for tomorrow so we can get some sleep and then we can just go? And I was like, all right, sure, fine. Because I didn't want to go by myself because, you know, stranger danger and whatever. But I was at the point where I was like, I got to make this happen. And I did make it happen. And then, yeah, pretty much any trip I wanted to go on, I had to go and make that happen. And I did. So yeah. It's a lesson that I've had to relearn a number of times. And I think this is just another time that I've had to learn it. Yeah, so I'm going to try to remember it this time.
Yeah, and like I said, it's definitely, we're taking a risk here of like living on our own in a totally different area where we literally don't know anybody personally. Except right. Maybe our neighbor, he keeps on saying hi to us.
Yes.
He's very nice. But, you know, I'm excited too. You know, with risk comes excitement.
Yeah.
You know, and this weekend I was going to help build our shrine up again. And then we're also, like you said, we're going to go visit some nature reserves and in the area and see where we could potentially do our sacrifices and offerings in the future.
Yeah.
And that's exciting in itself. And then hopefully we can actually find some like-minded people here so that we can meet in person.
Yeah, and honestly, that's probably going to be like the biggest challenge for us because we're not exactly the most socially outgoing people. But, you know, just like with the move here, we're figuring out you just have to put yourself out there, especially if you want to find a community, which is exactly what we're trying to do. It won't happen if you don't put yourself out there. So
exactly.
Yeah. Yeah. Well, I
All
think
right.
that about does it for today. I think if we keep talking, we're probably gonna beat that horse dead. Yeah. So it's good to be back. Good to be doing episodes again. Hopefully we'll get back to kind of a weekly routine, and I've got some plans in the future to kind of make the podcast a little bit more professional, maybe get a social media page going. So yeah, hopefully my 7 subscribers go ahead and follow that page. So yeah. Anyways,
we'll definitely update you when that goes up in live.
Yeah, so until next time.
Bye.